Yesterday we had the 100k Solo LAN and Cammy was crowned as the winner, but the tournament ended in controversy. Let's get straight into what happened. Before I get into talking about which players did well, I have to give huge credit to Erazer because they ran a really good tournament. Everything ran so smoothly, the only issues were the ones that were out of their control, more on that later. The whole LAN had a really nice community feel to it. I loved how they incorporated the players' nations as a more relevant part of the event. The fact that they had the shirts with the flags on was really cool. The whole event had a really nice vibe to it. The broadcasts were great too. I watched the English one and it was really nice to see them just relaxing, enjoying the games, like genuinely getting into it, rather than perhaps the more standard casting style that we're used to. I really hope this can become a yearly thing because I'd love to see this LAN run again next year. Now let's get into the players that performed well during the tournament. And in first place, as I've already mentioned, we had Cammy. He was excellent throughout all the games. He used his usual style of playing for placement and that really ended up working out for him. Cammy managed an average placement of 8.67 but only ended up with 1.5 average eliminations per game. For context, Flixie, who came third, managed an average placement of 31st, but an average eliminations of 3.67. So that really proves that there's lots of routes to success when you're playing solos. This was the first major tournament we've had with the new Storm Surge changes. If you don't know what they are, previously Storm Surge was calculated by just the damage you've done. Now it's the damage that you take minus off from the damage that you do to create a net total. Now a lot of the players didn't really seem to enjoy it during this tournament. I actually quite liked it. I think it brings a new dimension to the game. Also, it eliminates surge trading, which is great, but it's exciting to watch players that are only 20 below the threshold and then they do a tag and they go up and then they go straight back down. That's good for the viewer experience. And listen, whilst a lot of the players didn't like the new surge changes, some of them adapted and no one did that better than Cammy. In every game, he positioned himself at the top of Shining Span, built a huge platform, stacked it with heals, and then he would wait in zone and look for tags on other players so he could stay above Storm Surge. Once again, Cammy proves that you don't need to be the best W keyer in the game to win tournaments. With only 1.5 average eliminations per game, he managed to win the LAN. Even before this tournament, Cammy was regarded as one of the best LAN players. He won the Invitational in 2022 and also the Gamers 8 LAN in 2023. He also managed second place in Globals 2023 and DreamHack 2022. Yesterday's first place means he now has 3 LAN wins, which is just hugely impressive. So well done to Cammy, a great performance from him. I am now going to get into why the tournament was a bit controversial, but I wanted to give Cammy the credit he deserves before then. Okay, so before I talk about the problems of how the tournament ended, I just want to 100% stress it was not Erazer's fault. They put on a great event. Everything they did went perfectly. The issue was on Epic Games' end, so I'm not trying to criticize Erazer in any way. What ended up happening is that we had a repeat of the matchmaking bug that was in the Eval Cup last week that meant players couldn't get into game. Because it was the weekend and there were no Epic Games employees available to fix the bug, the tournament ended up being stopped early. The organisers tried everything they could. They played about 5 or 6 games, but not every player got into them, so they all had to be restarted. So in the end, stopping the tournament early was the only option. The cup was meant to be 8 games and it only ended up being 6 because of the bug. So unfortunately, I think we have to put a huge asterisk next to this event. As I've already said, huge credit to Cammy for winning, but I just can't give this LAN that much weighting because not all of it was played out. In a similar way to how Globals 2023 isn't regarded that highly because of the lag during that tournament, we have to put an asterisk next to this Erazer LAN. There was nothing the organisers could do, but it was definitely a shame because I feel like we were robbed of a really great finish. Flixie actually ended up winning game 6 to put him into 3rd place, so he had the momentum going into the last 2 games, and I genuinely think there was a good chance he would have won the event if those last 2 matches were played out. But that's all just speculation. I just wish we could have seen what would have happened if all 8 games were played out. I'm happy to give Cammy credit as the winner. I just wish it could have been after 8 games, not 6, so at least the win would have more weighting. But enough about that, let's get into the rest of the leaderboard. In second place, we had Teeny, a great performance from him. He was in first for a little while. Unfortunately, in games 5 and 6, he kind of fell off the pace a bit. Otherwise, he could have won the tournament. As I've already mentioned, Flixie came third. We then had Pixie in fourth, widely regarded as one of the best solo players in the region. It was no surprise to see him placed this high. Twy ended up finishing in 5th. That was definitely a surprise to me, but it was nice to see some UK representation in the top 5. Waze came 6th, another player that I didn't expect to finish that high. He managed to win game 1, so fair play to him. We then had Chino in 7th, Sato in 8th, Vico in 9th and Karama in 10th. Overall, you'll notice from that top 10 that there weren't a huge amount of surprises. The players that we know are good at solos mostly managed to place well. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a look at the predictions I made before the tournament and we can see how accurate they were. So I ended up predicting Vico to finish in first place. He ended up coming in 9th. He started the tournament quite well. Unfortunately, he couldn't quite keep the consistency. He was pretty adamant that with 2 extra games, he would have placed higher. I'll put the clip in now.
On my life, I would have 100% top 3. You know, I actually genuinely changed changed my whole setup for the last 2 games. Bro, I was gonna land top meta, go for bunker, and then just miracle kids. I could have generally top 3. There wasn't even that much of a difference. Like one top 10, 10 kill win, and I was third.
Unfortunately, because we didn't get to play out the last 2 games, we will never know whether he would have surged up the leaderboard, so 9th is where he finished. Before I go any further, let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. I didn't put Cammy in my top 10. I probably would have had him in about 11th or 12th. It was him and Velo that I really wanted to put in the top 10, but I just couldn't fit them in. I also didn't put Cammy in my top 10 for the solo series, and that is definitely going to change, so check out my Twitter for my new predictions for that, because he is certainly going to be in there now. Back to this though, I predicted Kurama to finish 2nd. We know how good of a solo player he is, been the best player in the solo series so far, which he's playing today, so we'll see how well he does in that. He managed to come in 10th place, not too bad of a finish. It's a tough one with Kurama, because the standards he's set so far have been so high that a 10th place finish, whilst that's actually really good, almost feels a bit low. He did play really well, but based on how good he's been in the solo series, I was expecting him to finish a little bit higher. In 3rd place, I predicted Teeny. I actually wasn't sure if I was overrating him when I put him that high, but it turned out I was underrating him because he managed to finish 2nd. Teeny is obviously someone who had a great 2024 and then kind of struggled this year, but since Globals has ended, he's been back with a bang, placing really highly with Shark and doing well now in this solo tournament. He's got the solo series today. He's splitting Supernova Academy with Shark. I think it's going to be another high finish for him there too. I predicted Chap to finish 4th. He ended up coming in 50th. Just wasn't his day, unfortunately. The next 3 players I wasn't too far off on. I put Flixie to come 5th. He ended up coming in 3rd. I put Pixie to come 6th. He ended up coming in 4th. And then the only one that I got spot on, Chino, I predicted him to come 7th. He ended up finishing in 7th. My final 3 predictions weren't particularly good though. I put Haris to come in 8th. He ended up finishing in 92nd, so a real miss from me there. I put Ping to come in 9th. He ended up coming in 67th. And I put Akira to come 10th, and he came 33rd. Overall, I don't think these predictions were too bad, save for not putting Cammy in the top 10, which was, in hindsight, a really bad decision. So at this point in the video, I'd normally talk about the NA Central Cups and which EU players have been doing well there. Unfortunately, we didn't really have any, save for Queasy. Obviously, he's currently in NA Central, but he's an EU player, so I want to report on how he's doing. He didn't have the greatest tournament. He came 14th with his new duo Curly. I'm sure we'll see him do better in the coming weeks, but yesterday wasn't his day. I also want to give my thoughts on the new leaked map for next season. I know everyone else has done this and I'm a bit late to it, but I do want to give my take on it. I'm quite excited about the fact that we have a smaller map. I think it's going to be quite interesting, and here's why. Put simply, it's something new. We've been used to having such a big map during this chapter, and I think for ranked games, it's going to be a lot more fun when everyone's bunched up together. In terms of set lobby finals, it's also going to be really interesting to see what happens when there's less loot on the map, when there's less POIs. Maybe it won't be the best thing for the game. I'm not saying it's going to be great. I'm just saying I'm excited to see what happens. The season's only a month long, and I think it's a fun experiment for that month. The main negative I can think of is that third-partying fights will become way more commonplace. With players closer together, because it's a smaller map, it will be statistically easier to infiltrate a 2v2 fight, meaning players might be less inclined to go for battles. Let's not forget that the new Storm Surge affects that as well. We saw in yesterday's Solo LAN that players would get some damage on the player, but then instead of finishing the fight, they just immediately rotate out because they got what they came for. So with the new surge meaning that players don't want to commit as heavily to fights, and a smaller map meaning that they're more likely to get third-partied, we could see some conservative playstyles in the mini season. The map is also cell shaded too, which means it has the anime cartoonish style that some skins in the game have. I'm not a huge fan of that, but for a month, I think it could be fun. Looking ahead, we have the solo series finals today. By the time you're watching this video, it might have already happened, and I will be doing a review of that in my video tomorrow. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought of the Erazer LAN. Did you enjoy the tournament? Who did you think played well? Who did you want to see a little bit more from? I want to know what you guys think. Thank you very much for watching the video. See you in the next one.